course, welcome to our esteemed alumni who are joining us this evening on this panel. I'm Melissa Friedman. I'm the Director of the Office of Alumni Affairs. I've actually been at JTS since September of 2004. I was hired by our then Dean of List College, Dr. Shirley Rubin Schwartz, who you may now know is the Chancellor of JTS, our 8th Chancellor and first female Chancellor, so it's very exciting. And as I said, I was hired by her and I was working with List College. I was Director of Career Development. I was working closely with students and placement and List College alumni. And by 2009, I transitioned into this position, working with alumni in all 5 schools, as well as our non-degree programs. And I can honestly say that the Office of Alumni Affairs, what we do at JTS, which is so unique and specific, is that we create bridges between students in any of the schools with alumni from any of our schools. And JTS alumni, specifically List College alumni, are unique and dynamic and unbelievably well-read and global. And I have found over my years that the networking that happens not just between students and alumni, but happens between alumni and alumni is something that is really nuanced to our JTS community. I have never had an experience where I've given a student a suggestion to contact an alum, even if it was from another school, where that didn't go unbelievably well and lead to other conversations. So I just, it's an honor for me to have the opportunity to work with List College students. I actually met with our List seniors today, and I shared similarly with them the importance of staying connected and how beneficial it is when you relocate, when you transition. So it's a privilege for me to be able to speak tonight to you alongside these amazing alumni who, you know, I sent an email. You guys want to speak to some admitted students? And they enthusiastically replied yes. They want to share their experiences, what they love, where they are today, and how JTS and their List education made it possible for them to get to this path. So I am going to start off. We're going to do introductions alphabetically. And I believe that brings us to Hannah Brennan. So please introduce yourself, Hannah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Goodman-Brenman. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and I graduated from List College and Barnard College in 2012. At List College, I majored in modern Jewish studies, and at Barnard, I was a history major, and I also participated in Barnard's education program. I am a rare person that I have known my whole life what I wanted to do. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so being able to do the education program at Barnard and to certify as a New York City teacher as an undergrad was a really important and exciting thing for me. While I was in school, I was really involved in List College Student Council. I served as student body president for 2 years. I was involved at Hillel, serving as co-chair, the conservative movement on campus co-chair for a semester. But outside of the Jewish world, I was really involved in the Columbia University Dance Marathon, which at the time raised money for the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. I believe it now is a different organization, but that was a really wonderful thing I was a part of. After graduating, I was a certified New York City teacher. So I started teaching in New York City right away as a social studies teacher. I then also earned my special education license and my master's in literacy education. And I have been teaching 8th grade social studies and special education at a school in Queens for 10 years now. And eventually I moved from the Upper West Side to Queens, where I now live with my husband and my 2 kids. So if you hear, they're not totally asleep. If you hear some little noises in the background, that is what that is. And I'm excited to be here. So thank you
all. Next, we have Nick.
Hey, everybody. So great to be here. My name is Nick Bruscato. I'm born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I currently live in Chicago, and I graduated from List College and GS in 2014. I like to call my majors the pizza bagel major because I was modern Jewish studies at JTS and then Italian cultural studies at Columbia. So I myself am a pizza bagel. I'm Italian Jew, so it's very fitting to kind of pursue that track. While at JTS, I was a tour guide. I was an admissions intern. I don't know if this is still a position at JTS, but I was the greening intern and started the compost program in the Goldsmith dorms that I don't know if students are still living in. At Columbia, I was on the board of the Moyi Kung Fu Club and then editor-in-chief of Avanim, which was a Jewish literary arts magazine. And then I was in API, which is a Jewish fraternity. While over my 4 years, I studied abroad in Bologna, Italy, which was very helpful in getting through all of the credits that are required for this joint program. And then after graduation, I pursued another joint program, the Peace Corps Masters International Program, where I did a year of coursework at the University of Michigan, pursuing a Master's of Science in Environmental Justice, and then served 2 years in the Peace Corps in the Philippines as a coastal resource management volunteer. Then finished my master's, then worked at FEMA, working with Native American tribes, tribal nations on climate change data and mitigation services in Chicago. And then more recently, I transferred to the Department of Interior, working in international technical assistance. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. And just to answer your question, the graduating class is the last class. This current senior class is the last class to have lived in Goldsmith. And they're all now living in the state-of-the-art brand new residence hall that is part of our new campus. So thank you.
And the green team legacy continues.
Yes, this is also true and awesome. Yes. So yes, thank you. Josh.
Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Josh Lieberman. I grew up in Dobbs Ferry, New York in Westchester County. And then now I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan after returning from spending 4 years in San Francisco. I also graduated from the joint program in 2014 with Nick. My major at JTS was Modern Jewish Studies with a concentration in history, specifically immigrant literature. So I was really drawn to the stories of 19th and 20th century immigrants. I'm a second generation American myself, and authors like Philip Roth, Abraham Kahn, Yazerska, all of these stories about, first generation Americans and immigrants really spoke to me, and I was able to relate to that with my family's story as immigrants from Eastern Europe. At GS, I was a computer science major. I didn't know I always wanted to be a computer science major or work in software engineering. Through middle school and high school, I spent most of my time in a TV studio, and I thought I was going to go into film and TV. And I really enjoyed the technological aspect of broadcast TV and journalism. My deans in college, when I was a freshman, suggested I take a programming class because I was always interested in technology. So I took an intro to programming class that wasn't even part of the curriculum, liked it, and decided to go headfirst into that. And, I'll explain how that ties back into my JTS education a little bit later. As an undergraduate, I was part of ADI at Columbia, which is the Application Development Initiative Club, software computer science club. I frequently studied in the Beit Midrash at JTS, not always, studying Talmud, but we did a lot of homework in there, and it was a fun place to hang out and see your friends. I attended plenty of Pismon concerts, and many close friends were in Pismon, the a cappella group. And also at JTS, I was able to sort of merge my language studies of Hebrew, Yiddish, and any programming languages I was studying with my senior capstone project called MapQuetch. It was a map-based app of Jewish landmarks around New York City, and that was chosen to present in front of the dean and other administration, which is really cool. I didn't have a chance to study abroad as an undergrad, but I did intern for a tech company in Dallas, Texas, which was a far cry from growing up in New York. That's where I really learned and discovered my passion for mobile video and watching TV on phones and things like that. At that company, I learned to design and market apps for TV networks and all sorts of video streaming projects, which are really cool. Eventually after college, I became a iPhone focused programmer, working on all sorts of different apps before eventually landing at A&E Television Networks, where I rebuilt their mobile streaming platform. And after that, I joined Apple to work on the Apple TV product. Today, I'm still at Apple. I'm working on live sports streaming, specifically MLB's Friday Night Baseball and MLS Season Pass. And I'm happy to be back in New York.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm going to use this as a quick opportunity for a shameless plug of the current exhibit at the JTS Library, which is Yiddish in New York, because Josh, you, and I invite everybody on this Zoom to come and see this, and I think it would certainly resonate with you in particular. So thank you, Josh. And next we are going to hear from Orly.
Hi, I'm Orly. I graduated JTS-GS in 2018, and Nick, I'm not sure if you remember, but you were actually my tour guide. When you started speaking, I remembered, I realized. So I graduated 4 years after when I came to visit. I guess you were a senior, and I'm originally from Toronto. My parents are American, and I actually am still living with them. I live in Miami now. And my undergrad majors at JTS, I was Jewish literature, and at Columbia, I was evolutionary biology with a concentration in psychology. And my undergraduate extracurriculars at Columbia, I was very involved in research. So I did research in the neuroscience department. And I also did research at the medical school in the psychiatry department. And I did also a program that I'm not sure exists anymore, but you go to different native reservations across the country to teach college prep, SAT prep courses. And then I also was very involved in the Hillel Social Justice Fellowship, and I was able to study at Hartman through a program at Hillel as well. I also didn't formally study abroad, but I would actually really recommend this to any of you who have like a fair number of Hebrew credits, when you take the placement test or feel like you will. Before I started that summer, I did an Ulpan program at the University of Haifa. It was extremely fun, and I went from being somewhere in the middle of the pack, like needing quite a few Hebrew credits left to needing no Hebrew credits. So I would highly recommend it. It was like probably one of the most fun summers and really useful. And then career trajectory post-grad, I'm in medical school. So my career hasn't really started yet. I'm still a student. I'm actually I also loved JTS-GS so much that I decided to do another joint program, and I'm actually getting my medical degree as well as a master's in public health. So I'm also thesis writing because medical school wasn't enough. And I'm at the University of Miami, where the GS dean, who you'll meet, Dr. Rosenmensch, who was a JTS grad, actually taught at the University of Miami Medical School for a long time. So we have a little connection, University of Miami, JTS, GS, that goes a way back before me. And then, so current industry. So I'm a pretty recent grad and I'm still in school. So any questions about pre-med at List or how to balance both or why List in medical school or how to draft an application for that, you can contact me after as well.
Thank you. And I'll give you another fun fact about Dean Lisa Rosenmetsch. She did her graduate work at Gainesville, Florida. She and her husband were both List College students. She got her PhD at University of Florida, and during her time they got involved in the Jewish community, and my father-in-law was a Hillel rabbi, and she was the USY director, where my husband was probably in USY against his will, but they remember each other. So thank you. And Jenna, transition. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm originally from Hollywood, Florida. I'm currently in Hartford, Connecticut, as a student at the University of Hartford. When I was in JTS, so I did the JTS Barnard program, and I graduated in 2020. At JTS, I majored in Jewish women and gender studies, and then at Barnard, I majored in psychology. And similar to Hannah, I also kind of had known for a while before coming to college what I wanted to major in, at least like at the secular level. And then, of course, being at Barnard and really loving the women's college vibes, I wanted to major in Jewish women and gender studies because I just felt like that was something that was missing from my previous Jewish education. And highly recommend that major. It was really incredible. And then in terms of what I was involved in during my time at Barnard and JTS in Columbia, I was a big part of my life was Camp Tessum, which is a nonprofit organization that provides a free week of camp to children whose parents or caregivers are impacted by cancer. So highly recommend joining that group. I know they're still around. I was also pretty involved with Hillel. I did the first year leadership fellowship, which was a really cool way to meet other students in the other schools. And then I became one of like the coordinators of that fellowship my sophomore year. I was involved in the Hannah Weiss Sustainability Committee, which I'm pretty sure is still around too. And I was also an admissions intern at GTS and a tour guide. So that was really fun also. So happy to be back on the admission side of things. I did study abroad. I studied abroad in Dakar, Senegal. So that was a really cool experience and got to continue a little bit of my studies of like religious pluralism there, which is really cool to connect back to my studies at JTS too. And then I'm currently at the University of Hartford. I'm getting my doctorate in clinical psychology. So kind of, I always, again, like knew I wanted to go do something in the field of psychology. And then one of my advisors just kind of recommended going all the way if I knew I wanted to be a psychologist. So kind of just didn't stop with school, continued on. So that's where I am today. So happy to talk a little bit more about that too, but great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. I love all the diversity. It reaffirms whenever I go to a room full of people or students or a panel like this and I speak about the diversity, and then to hear all of you actually, reaffirm that is really fun. Thank you. Okay, so next, Sarah, let's hear from you, please.
Hi, I'm Sarah. This is Rory, who has apparently decided to be part of the panel tonight. I am born and raised in Syracuse, New York, and much to my mother's delight, I am back. So I graduated from the double degree program in 2013. I majored in English at Barnard and in modern Jewish studies at List. Unlike many of, I guess, my co-panelists, I did not know what I wanted to do when I grew up. Some days I still don't think I do, but it's not that easy. So we can certainly talk about all the different opportunities and kind of internship opportunities and how I sort of sorted things out. Outside of the classroom, I was really heavily involved with student government. So I served a year on the executive board of the Macintosh Activities Council at Barnard, which is Barnard's programming and events board. So all the fantastic Barnard campus traditions, midnight breakfast, big sub, Spirit Day, Founders Day, the Greek games, all that good stuff, MACAC is responsible for. And then after that, I served 2 years on the executive board of the Student Government Association. And all of that work is policy focused for various different policies on campus. And it was really a really cool way to give back to the community and to do so in sometimes invisible ways that, the student body didn't know about. And that was a lot of fun. I did not study abroad in undergrad. SGA made that not a possibility. And another thing I did on campus was that I was a List College tour guide. And I guess I was good at it because I was hired to work in the admissions office when I graduated. And so I spent a few years doing List College recruitment, and actually some of the alum on the panel I recruited. And so this is kind of a cool opportunity to see them all again and where they ended up. And after I left the admissions office, I did some graduate work in early American political philosophy, which unsurprisingly led me to law school. So I graduated from Emory University in Atlanta a few years ago, and now I'm an attorney at a law firm here in Syracuse.
Thank you so much. And not last but not, Dan, we have 2 W's.
Yeah, it's cool to be a W and not be last. Sorry. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Walker. I grew up in Belmont, Massachusetts. I'm currently living in Brooklyn, New York. I did the GS-JTS program, class of 2012. I majored in Talmud and Rabbinics at JTS and computer science in the software systems track at Columbia. I chose Talmud. I didn't know what I wanted to study, certainly at JTS. Coming in, I chose Talmud really after taking my first Talmud class. I didn't really have much of a formal Jewish educational background. And that was my first really structured introduction to Talmud, and just seeing the Talmudic logic and the kind of parallels to, in some ways, the way my brain works, and kind of there's a lot of parallels really between Talmud and computer science, and just seeing all the interesting things that come out of that, and so much of how practical observance of Judaism exists today, coming from that oral tradition and rabbinic law, was just really exciting, and so decided to further my education there in Talmud. Computer science. Sort of had an inkling that I wanted to do that. And my parents are both software engineers. It seemed like a great career just looking at them growing up. I took CS first in high school. I was pretty nervous about it at the time because of the expectations of having my parents as software engineers. Unsure if it would go well, if I'd be good at it. Thankfully I did, and I really loved it. And then that love just really expanded further in college with the additional theory that I was learning and diving into really interesting code bases and interesting systems. And I knew I made the right decision after studying that. In terms of extracurriculars, I was involved with the ski team at Columbia and the bowling team. I was actually a founding member of the bowling club at the time, which was pretty fun. I was involved with Hillel. I was the webmaster involved with the Federalist paper, which is a satirical newspaper at Columbia, which was a lot of fun. I was also the webmaster for the JTS Eco Reps, which I'm not sure if that's still a thing, or maybe it's called something else now. I interned as a software engineer with companies called AppFirst and Koga Labs. I did study abroad. I went to Jerusalem my junior year, and not satisfied with just being at one institution, being so used to being both at Columbia and JTS, I studied at Hebrew University as well as a conservative yeshiva, and that was really great. Since graduation, or after graduation, I started as a backend developer at a company called Palantir Technologies, moving out to Palo Alto in the heart of Silicon Valley, and was mainly working as an individual contributor as a backend developer. Started leading some technical projects there. In 2018, moved back to New York. Also with Palantir, but starting on our Foundry platform at Palantir, and leading additional projects. And I'm currently a software development team lead, leading a team of developers working on that platform.
Thank you. And for those of you who are feeling like you might want to go into the same thing your parents did, and whether or not that's the same path, just know Dan's sister is not in software engineering or computer science. She's also an alum, and she's a rabbi. So a very different field, and as well as Olis College. So thank you for sharing your story, Dan. Eva, now last but not least, we love you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eva. I am from Wynwood, Pennsylvania, so it's the suburbs of Philly, and I'm currently living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I graduated from the joint program with JTS and GS in 2020, and at JTS, I was a modern Jewish studies major, and at Columbia, I was American history with a 20th century focus. And I knew that I always was interested in politics. I'll kind of get into it a little bit about what I'm doing right now. But I started taking some political science classes, and also even at JTS taking classes that had some sort of like political leaning or understanding some political ideology, like feminist Jewish ethics, to name one of the ones that really stood out to me. And I just found that although political science is good for a lot of people, I liked understanding things in broad strokes. I didn't want the quantitative perspective. I wanted to be able to kind of come to some of my own conclusions. And then in my career, I could figure out what to do with that information. And those two majors were very compatible with each other. You could take classes at JTS that would count for the history major at Columbia. and vice versa. And so because of that, I was able to take a really wide range of courses, as well as a bunch of different religion courses at Columbia that would count for both majors. So I was able to take the Quran, I was able to take Hinduism. And so that's, one of the flexibilities. And to Orly's point about placing high in Hebrew, I did take a gap year. I went on Kivunim, which is based in Israel. You travel to different countries, very cool program. Because of that, my Hebrew was very strong when I took the placement test. So I only had to take one semester of Hebrew and had quite a lot of flexibility, actually. So within the Columbia JTS community, at JTS, I'm trying to remember all the random things that I did. I was a co-chair of List College Orientation, which was amazing. I also was a chair of the Spring Formal, which is another fun thing that List College puts on, as well as on the Shabbat Dinner Committee, and a few other things here and there. And then at Columbia, mostly within Hillel, I was on REA, Columbia Students Association for Israel's executive board. So I was doing engagement as well as events. The few years that I was there was quite a lot of political activity. And so that was kind of my big thing. And then I was also on Yavne board, which is the modern Orthodox community at Hillel. So I was social chair. And that was also a cool mix because I was able to have my JTS Jewish community as well as my Hillel community. And there was lots of overlaps between those two. But I was really able to lean into those different identities a little bit. And then my senior year, that was really when I was more focused on Democratic politics. So that was 2020. There was a primary going on. So I was involved with Students for Pete. And then starting in about February, maybe beginning of March, I became president of Columbia Students for Biden. So yeah, then as far as abroad, I went to Israel. I did the Nachshon Project, which was a really cool Jewish fellowship that I did. And you're studying at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and then you're also part of this cohort of people who are interested in pursuing Jewish nonprofit or serving the American Jewish community in some capacity. So kind of indicative in what I was involved with also sort of explains how I was able to really make it into a career. I'd always joke, what am I supposed to do with an American history and modern Jewish studies major? And I definitely figured out how to do that. So right when I was graduating, Melissa's laughing because she knows this whole story. So right when I was it's a good one. So right when I was graduating, so as I had mentioned, I was president of Columbia for Biden, and it was one of the most successful chapters. And so I was helping a lot with the national student outreach program for the Biden campaign, which quickly led to me bringing in a lot of my interests. And I was the co-founder of Jews for Joe, which was a young Jewish outreach effort on the Biden campaign to engage with young Jews, whether it was young professionals, a lot of college, as well as high school students, and to mobilize people to take action in a Jewish community organizing way. One thing led to another. I ended up formally also working on the Biden campaign in Pennsylvania. I was still living in New York, kind of balancing both of those things. Also with COVID, really just like taking advantage of this world of distributed organizing. Of course, that was a very successful campaign, and I was able to kind of take a step away from the Jewish world in an extent, while also, kind of leading with my Jewish faith in other ways. And then my next full-time race that I worked on Tali Farhadi and Weinstein's race for Manhattan District Attorney. And on that campaign, I was doing a mix of student outreach as part of like our field program and Upper West Side field organizing, really the Upper West Side, having been there for all of college, but then entering into the political world was really exciting. And then I also was her Jewish outreach director. Then after that race, so that ended in June of last year, I was focusing on a few different projects within the realm of like pro-Israel democratic politics. So I went out to Ohio for the Chantel Brown race, as well as right after that happened, and kind of at the same time, I don't really know how I did this, I was managing a school board race in Pennsylvania. And then and so that ended in November. For graduating in 2020, I did quite a bunch of jobs. And then in December of 2021. So about a year and a half ago, I was appointed by Governor Hochul to be her deputy director of Jewish affairs for New York State. So I'm able to do that from Manhattan, and being able to figure out this political Jewish trajectory has been really amazing. And now I am still engaged with JTS in a totally new way, but in the same way that JTS really inspires us to engage with like the plurality of Judaism and the Jewish community and what that looks like. I'm able to do that within my current role as well, which is really amazing. So thank you for having me here today.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for our panelists and for all of the attendees here tonight. I hope that at least one panelist here speaks to your particular interests. And so we have a few prepared questions that we're going to ask our panelists tonight. And panelists, you can chime in as you please. We don't need to have everyone answer every question. That is perfectly fine. For our attendees, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat box, and we will try our best to get to those as well. So without further ado, our first question is this. So panelists, put yourself back into the shoes of our attendees here today when you were going through the college search process, and in reflection now, post-grad, what made you choose List College? And what stood out to you about List from other colleges that you were considering or other schools that your friends went on to? So whoever wants to start with why List, why they chose List, feel free to chime in.
I'm going to call on you, Sarah. I know the answer, but I want to hear it in a more articulate way.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons I think anyone chooses a college. So I guess my recruitment story is that the rabbi at my synagogue at the time and her husband are both List College alum, and so they very much wanted me to go to List. And so when I was, I think, a sophomore in high school, they just so happened to have Shuli come as a visiting scholar to my synagogue, at which point she did a talk about picking a college Jewishly, which of course I attended, and then that led to me coming to oh my goodness, junior Prospective Students Day, and then Prospective Students Weekend, and all the events in between, Accepted Students Day. So that was originally how I got to know what List College was in the first place. And then in terms of choosing, I mean, I applied early decision. It was a pretty quick, easy, correct fit for me. But I really wanted a rigorous Jewish academic experience, more so than the communal experience. That academics was really important to me. I felt like I had some gaps in my Jewish education, and that was something I wanted to fill in college. And as I started looking at some other schools, it became obvious very quickly that what I could get from a Jewish studies major or a Jewish studies department somewhere else was something I could get at List in the first year. And so the depth and breadth of the Jewish academic opportunities at List it's just unmatched. You can't do from a Jewish academic perspective what List College students do anywhere else. And so that was probably the biggest piece for me. But in terms of really kind of the emotional piece of being on campus, I remember meeting then current students when I was a prospective student. And I wanted to be like them when I grew up. I thought they were really cool. But I also kind of felt like I could be their friend. And so it felt like I could fit in, but also it was this aspirational thing. I think Hannah was probably one of those students. And so that was the emotional piece of it. And it fit. Jen or Hannah could probably talk to why Barnard, because I've talked enough, but those were all the pieces.
Excellent.
I gave Sarah her tour on Prospective Students Weekend. There was like a whole generation of double degree students that every single one of them, I had given them a tour for like 3 or 4 years in a row. So for me, I knew I wanted to be at a school that had a really, really strong Jewish community. And List College uses sort of the catchphrase, best of both worlds. And I will say among my friends who are List College alumni, we kind of joke about that sometimes, but it really is true on a really deep level. And I think similarly for me, I felt that way about Barnard as well. Like being a student at Barnard within the larger Columbia system, being a student at Liss College in the larger JTS system, in the larger New York City system, like you have this like small core community in Liss College that is like your group, your people, your safe space. And that gives you the opportunity to expand out and grow in different ways. And so you have this small community in this larger community. You have this small space in huge New York City. You have, you know, access to like any number of classes and majors and clubs, being a part of these huge institutions, and access, like Sarah was saying, to like top-notch professors. One thing that I used to always say is like, I thought I wanted to be a Jewish studies major at the other schools I was considering. And literally the books that I would have read as a Jewish study major anywhere else were written by the professors I got to study with at JTS. But at the same time, Barnard for me did something really, really similar. It was a small community in a much larger community. As I could access everything at Columbia with still having that really safe home base. And so you really do get to pick and choose in whatever way works for you while having that really comfortable, safe home base. So that was what was really important for me.
I actually thought a lot about this question because I was on pediatrics the year, like it was my first rotation, and it was the week before everyone leaves for college. And so all day I was signing people's forms, their vaccination forms for college. And I was asking like student after student, like, so why did you pick your college? Why did you pick your college? Everyone responded the same thing. And it was the same reason I picked a college. So I quickly stopped asking, which was just like, I don't know. I really liked the fields. I liked the brochures. I could imagine myself there. I don't know, felt good. So don't worry if you don't feel like you have a coherent reason for liking it. I for sure didn't. Now in retrospect, I can see that the things that I liked about JTS and Columbia, I also like about my MD, MPH program now. Like I like how internal medicine, you sit at a table and you'll round and talk with a professor who's sitting at the same level as you, come out with a shared intellectual product where you can like really ask questions and discuss back and forth cases and close read like patient reports. That's very similar to the learning structures of JTS. And I like felt like it was a new way to sit in a classroom, and I just really liked it. I felt like the students were what, yeah, with Sarah, what you said, talking about things that I liked. I felt like the ways that they were talking about being an adult were ways that I wanted to grow and be an adult. But at the time, I don't think I understood any of that. I just kind of came out and felt good and felt kind of like, oh, I belong. And no one was talking about sports. and you know, there was no football game that we were all in face paint for. And there were just things about the school that resonated with me on kind of a gut feeling. So, you know, it just made me feel good, and I liked it, and I still like it, and it still makes me feel good.
Excellent. Thank you.
JTS does have a basketball court, but you'll probably pick up your copy of Tradition Renewed in there.
Yes, well, that's for the student secrets, Josh. You're giving away the secrets before they show up. Josh, actually, I'm going to ask you to lead off with the second question because of what you said in your introduction. How does a dual degree in Jewish studies and the sciences or liberal arts at Columbia, how did that best prepare you for this world in coding and Apple TV and all of those things that you do? Because you referenced the relationship, and I would love to have you share that with everyone.
Well, one of the things that brought me to the joint program was the fact that you get 2 degrees, and they can be in completely separate, you know, focuses and studies. And I just thought that was the craziest thing, right? All the colleges that I were looking at, single degree programs, none of my friends or peers were ever even considering or looking at double degree programs. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Let's do it. And I think if you take that attitude into your professional career and things you learn at JTS, it'll really set you up for success. You're balancing nearly double course load, which is preparing you for the real world and all sorts of, personal and work responsibilities that you need to take. And it really helps you respect, and help develop your own identity and your religious identity, right? You were who you were growing up. You go to school, you go to JTS, you sort of discover what works with Judaism for you. And as an adult, you get to, play off of that and, we maybe have more stricter boundaries with your work and really learn to appreciate Shabbat. So there's so much that you can do there. But, I think the biggest thing was it's a ton of work. It's really worth it. And it really sets you up for success.
Excellent. Thank you. And Dan, how did the dual degree, the degree in Jewish studies combined with your schoolwork, your studies at Columbia, how did that prepare you for where you are today?
Yeah, I think, a large part of it was being able to get really good at time management and prioritization as part of my studies in college, managing the course load and managing the different aspects of the different courses in totally different areas made me get really good at kind of managing that that workload and finding a sense of balance and really finding importance in that balance, which has really helped me both within my career itself, but also kind of in my life more broadly, and being able to have kind of dual fulfillment, both professionally and in technology related matters, but also in Judaic studies and the Jewish world and Jewish community, and being able to have both those things that sort of play off of each other and allow me to experience them both, and also to maintain a balance within those things and within my work and life generally has been very helpful for my career, and also ensured my continued happiness and not burning out, and that has been very useful in being able to really grow and progress in my career.
Excellent. Jenna.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think coming from a psychology perspective, it's really helped me to be able to always be thinking about someone's cultural background when, sitting in a room with them. And I've found that, also going off of what other folks have said too, with, the double course load, that's very much helped with getting a graduate degree and really being able to balance, your classes with your practicum work as well. But I think, going back to what I said, it's just, I was always trying to find the connections between, what my psychology courses were saying and then what my Jewish women and gender study courses were saying, and really trying to understand the psychological aspects behind, the experience of gender diversity within Judaism. And so I think that that's really helped me to come into this new role that I'm in now, and sitting in a room with folks and always kind of considering, what their context is that brought them here today and how that's informing their present perspective. So I think this program really does help you to have a more diverse perspective on this world, and really able to find connections between kind of 2 points, I'd say. So always eternally grateful to my education here.
Okay, I have a question for the panelists next. Can anyone share a highlight from academics, whether it's a favorite course or professor or outside of academics, any undergraduate experience that was an aha moment for them that helped in their evolution, in their identity, or in where they aspired to go next? Any type of aha moments, or anyone want to speak about their evolution from first year of college to graduation day?
I know I just spoke, but something that just kind of immediately came to mind was one of the classes that I took. And I think Eva, we were in this class together about, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but it was basically talking about like gender in the Talmud. And it was just such a fascinating like perspective that I for context, I had gone to a Jewish day school all my life kind of growing up. So I'd had a pretty extensive like text study background, but I'd never, been taught from like this perspective of examining gender diversity in the Talmud and really interpreting different verses within more of like a gendered focused lens. And I think that was my like aha moment of like, this is how I know I was meant to be here, because it was basically that missing piece of the puzzle that I was looking for my whole life. And just really being able to kind of come to a Judaism and have my own relationship with Judaism that was defined by me and but defined by, my own perspective that I want to build rather than what, a teacher was telling me to believe. And that's something that I've always been so grateful to JTS for, was just that, no matter what a professor's like personal beliefs were, that wasn't brought into the classroom. And they really gave us all space to develop our own values and our own like orientations to the text. So that is a really special experience, I'd say. And and just kind of helped to form my Jewish identity as a whole too.
Thank you. This might not be an aha, but Nick, as somebody who's in Italian cultural studies and a modern Jewish studies and a self-sharing Italian Jew pizza bagel, your identity, how did that evolve? How did you enter List College with these not conflicting, but different yet complementing interests culturally and personally? How did you enter this college? How did those develop while you were a student in the joint program? That would be great to hear from you.
Sure. So my dad's side is Roman Catholic and my mom's side is Ashkenazi Jew. So I always grew up kind of with both of those identities. I did, however, go to Camp Ramah and I did USY, and that definitely helped kind of lay the foundation of why I wanted to go to List College. But, I very much enjoyed and embraced kind of the diversity of Jews at List, and didn't at no point felt kind of left out being the product of intermarriage, or felt isolated. By the end of my 4 years, I very much felt at home and comfortable in the conservative movement, which at times growing up, especially when you say an Aliyah and what's your father's Hebrew name? Oh, he doesn't have one. Those little moments of panic of I'm embarrassed or concerned about my identity. I very much left JTS feeling very confident in who I was. I took Dr. Wertheimer's class about modern Jewish studies, and there was like a whole book that we read about intermarriage called Double or Nothing. That was a good personal challenge, and I think it pushed back at the dominant narrative about like how intermarriage can destroy the Jewish lineage and our futures. We were at JTS at the time of the Pew study, and there was a lot of conversation within that space. And I felt great that I could kind of be at an institution and be who I was and weigh in on those conversations and kind of talk about Jewish identity and what it could be and what it is, and weigh in on my claim to being a part of that space. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. And Eva, I think you were about to say something before. Were you?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, good. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So this kind of responds to a few of the different questions about the aha moment, but also what were some of the things that really stuck out to me within List College and my identity. And so I had mentioned the class earlier, Feminist Jewish Ethics, which is taught by Professor Shira Billet, and that's at JTS. And when I took that course, that was one of the courses, honestly, of many that, yes, you're going through the motions, you're showing up to class, you're writing your papers, but that everything that you're doing, you're also leaning into your own personal identity. And as you're crafting your arguments and any thesis that you might be crafting, you're also thinking about yourself and how you fit into that. And so the thesis that I wrote for that class was about the different religious perspectives on abortion. And I ended up taking another class at Columbia the next year in the history department that was also about religion and like political ideologies. And that course, I also wrote my term paper on the same topic, but about religious perspectives on abortion in general. So not just about Judaism and what were some of those social movements. And even now, like within my career, I'm able to think back to those two classes, and I don't even, it's imprinted into my identity, and also the way in which I speak about these causes, which are very important and have become even more relevant. And the fact that I'm able to be in a job that I'm able to speak to, you know, the Jewish community, and but also understanding some of the non-traditional Jewish issues and what that looks like. And I really credit my experience at Liss College for how I was able to have the vocabulary to speak about my identity in such a way, and really using that to mobilize for really clear political change. And even when I was working on the Biden campaign as a field organizer, and I wasn't even working in a Jewish area, so there was a part of my campaigns that wasn't doing Jewish engagement. But the fact that I had 4 years with really, really smart people and classes that really push you to think about your own identity, and even your senior year at List, you have to write write like an identity paper where you leave with the actual imprint of this is where you're standing. Of course, it's not codified in any way. If anything, it's actually a very personal piece. But the fact that we're able to leave college, and for so many people, that's their first time in their life that they're out in the world and having to explore what it means to be doing something with complete free choice, instead of it, you know, you're in high school, you're in college, and that's it. But the fact that we're able to leave with a very clear understanding of who you are, or at least who you are at that point, of course, you will continue to evolve, but that has shaped me in every single job that I've had, because being able to understand your own identity and being able to relate to different people and being able to bring that emotion into the work that you're doing, that's incredible. And so, yes, I have really brought in like my Jewish identity into the work that I'm doing. But as you can see, many people do not go into Jewish fields at all whatsoever. But this identity piece, and that is such a huge part of what Liss College is, and why Liss College is different than any other college you could ever go to, and why I will always be grateful for the experience, because not only did you learn time management and learn how to handle quite a lot, but the emotional intelligence that you're walking away with from Liss College, and from the people that choose this program and choose this really rigorous curriculum, that is going to set you worlds apart in your professional trajectory, as well as your own personal identity and what you end up doing with that.
Eva, I'm really glad that you mentioned that senior seminar project, because that project, I really do feel like they bring it up as kind of something that you do that's very, very supposed to be introspective and not stressful. And then you present it to your peers at the end, and you're just supposed to kind of think about what you feel would be very meaningful for you to create this piece. And for mine, I ended up, I'm from Toronto, and so there was the SARS-1 pandemic in Toronto. I ended up interviewing a bunch of religious and non-religious Jews about their experience, if they feel like part of being Jewish is being social. What happens when you can't gather? How do you stay Jewish? And I interviewed like 20 people and got qualitative interviews and did like a thematic analysis. I can't even tell you, I don't work in healthcare. I mean, I don't work in Jewish, like organized Jewish work at all. Like I work in healthcare. I can't tell you how often I think about that project. So it was, I think that that's like a really amazing way that you do actually create something that you'll look back on and think about how you'll be a Jewish adult, how you'll be an adult who has a moral compass that is like guided by Judaism and guided by being a modern citizen. So it was definitely an aha moment for me.
my aha moment was a little less serious, a little less profound. I wrote my admissions essay on my cartoon collection, specifically all of the Nickelodeon VHS tapes I had growing up and through high school. And I remember being in Stephen Bain's Judaism in America course, and somehow the discussion turned into how the ADL thought that Grandpa Boris from the Rugrats was anti-Semitic because his nose was too big. And that really kind of brought things together. And while, not as serious as some of the other issues we've discussed, it's still part of my identity. And you have to remember to have a little bit of fun now and then. So that was a big one for me.
All right, I think, Madison, you good?
Yes, I'm good. I'm not seeing many questions from attendees, so we can near close with 2 more questions. How do you, if you're not working in a Jewish industry, how do you tie in your Jewish experiences into today, professionally and outside of your professional life? And what advice would you have for someone who's going through the college search process and application now?
Hannah, I know you're involved Jewishly.
Yes. So the first part of my answer, I think, might speak more towards the parents and the adults. And then I'm going to say something that I think might speak more towards the students. In my 20s, I lived on the Upper West Side. I was commuting into Queens. I got married. I had my first kid. And I knew I needed to find a community. And so when my husband and I were trying to figure out where to go, we were very intentional about moving into a Jewish community and finding a place where we could live Jewishly. And I mean, I think it connects back to what I was saying in my first answer of at JTS having that home base and wanting to find that Jewish community home base for myself and for my growing family. And so we made that very intentional choice, and we are extremely involved in our synagogue and in synagogue life. My husband and I both serve as committee chairs, and he's on the board, and we are at the synagogue multiple times a week for different programs or meetings or Hebrew school or whatever. And so I came to List College with a very strong Jewish identity, but then having that home base and being able to grow helped me to realize how important having that Jewish community was for me. And so as I became a Jewish adult, I very intentionally found that for myself and for my family. So that's speaking more to the parents in the room. For the students, just what advice do I have? I was saying before that the thing I loved about being at List College, about being at Barnard, is like there are so many options. One of my favorite facts when I was a tour guide, I was a tour guide at JTS, but also at Barnard. There were, I think, maybe 2,500 as a Barnard student. There were like 2,500 students per class or whatever it was, but you had access to 6,000 courses. And I forget what exactly the numbers were, but something like that. You just have access to everything. And my advice would be to try different things out, but also then to figure out what it is that you care about and what you want to do. Because you can't do everything. A bunch of people have talked about time management and talked about different management of different things. But you can do the things you want to do. And whatever that is you want to do, whether it's study abroad, whether it's being pre-med, whether it is getting your teaching certificate like I did, like you can do everything. And your deans and your advisors at List College, at Barnard, at JTS will work with you to do whatever it is you want to do. So in that first year, explore, figure it out, try lots of things. A bunch of people on this panel talked about coming in, having no idea what they wanted to do. And they took that class and it really inspired them and it led them to this thing. And then once you figure it out, like you can do it and enjoy and have fun.
Thank you. Who wants to jump in next? how are you connected Jewishly? Oh, Josh, good, great, thank you.
I think a big thing for me was that I didn't have a formal Jewish education growing up. I went to public school. I came in with very little Hebrew. I did the full, selection of courses from Hebrew all the way to oral. And, my core friend group as an adult developed from my classmates at JTS, the people who I would fly across the country for their first child's bris and things like that, that all developed at the joint program. I also didn't have that many Jewish friends growing up. I did have my synagogue community, but in even post-college and growing up in high school, I got a lot of, Josh, you're so Jewish, you go to synagogue on Yom Kippur. And I'm just like, oh, there is a big disconnect here. And now with this community and this friend group that I have that I've developed at school, there's always a Shabbos lunch to go to. There's always a simcha to celebrate. And I think it's really helped define my trajectory and my values as an adult. So I really value that. And that was definitely more that I had in school than I did growing up.
Excellent, thank you. Eva, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I think that in every respect, my Jewish community is something that Jewish community in general is something that I think about quite a lot professionally. But I actually like to speak to kind of my non-professional capacity and how being in Columbia JTS really sort of like prepared me to be involved. And that's not just because they chose a bunch of alumni who were involved, but literally everyone in this college gets involved with something. And I think that's something that isn't really thought about a lot when people are choosing where to go to college, is the fact that clubs are actually extremely elite and you can't actually always get into clubs. Like this idea of having to apply for clubs. Whereas in Liz College, no matter what, you are going to find a space that you are going to take on leadership responsibilities. And taking on leadership is something that you take it with you in every job. Like if you're a intern after your first year in college and you don't have that ability to stand up for yourself or say, I want to take on that extra project, you're not really going to grow as much as someone who does have that experience. And so in undergrad, it was really exciting for me to be able to be so involved. And I didn't grow up Orthodox. I ended up on within the non-Orthodox community and on that board. And that was something that was really cool for me, that I was able to be part of that space and push myself out of my comfort zone. And now I live on the Upper East Side. I'm one of the chairs for this cool initiative that's with the Chabad of the Upper East Side, as well as the Mono-Orthodox synagogue here, where there's services, and then afterwards there's a happy hour. It's on every single Friday night. It's for young professionals. And the fact that I was able to, find this space, figure out this initiative, that I was able to really implement things that I care about, which are making Judaism accessible, and giving people that opportunity to engage deeply with their Judaism in an out type of way. I think that for some people, it's, if you're in a community, you're in the community, but if you're not in it, it's hard to access it. And that's something that I would think about all the time at Liz College. It was something that with Liz College, no matter, if you didn't need to observe Shabbat to have an option for a Shabbat dinner, you probably had 50 different options, whether it was within a religious group, whether it was within Hillel, whether it was going to your neighbors in the JTS dorms for a meal, or if there was a Liz College Shabbat dinner, you name it, there's going to be an opportunity for that. But a lot of people don't have that, and didn't have that room for exploration in college. But now, even beyond my professional capacity, being able to give people that opportunity to engage with Jewish community is something that I care a lot about. And also a lot of my friends from Liz College are people that I see every single week. And even like tomorrow night for Shabbat dinner, that's who I will be spending with, a mix of some people who are in Liz College and some people who are in Barnard and Columbia. And so it really plays itself out in all of these different really cool ways. But I definitely am grateful for the community there and how I'm able to still benefit from it.
Excellent, thank you. Dan, I know you have lots of volunteer experiences. How do you connect Jewishly today?
Yeah, so really since graduating, I've been pretty involved in different like independent minyanim. I've really found a lot of fulfillment in Jewish communities surrounded around independent minyanim. In Brooklyn, I'm involved with two. I'm in Prospect Heights in Brooklyn. I'm involved with two traditional egalitarian minyanim that are based here, and one in particular called Altshul. I've been involved with for a while, and I'm now on the leadership team of. And really, I think I attribute a lot of the basis of my Jewish knowledge and kind of what I've been able to build on coming from List College. I grew up, going to public school. I went to Hebrew school, but didn't really have so much of a comprehensive Jewish education. And so getting that intense, comprehensive Jewish education from List really made a solid foundation that I could build upon going forward. And I've found is really helpful for not only the knowledge that I have and being able to use that to lead a minyan and all that goes into that, but also it kind of really gives me a sense of legitimacy, being able to lead an independent minyan, especially in an environment where we don't have a rabbi leading things. The education I got through List and built on since then has really enabled me to feel empowered to kind of provide direction as well as do all the logistical details of running a minyan. And so that's been really helpful and really great in my life.
Awesome. What's your advice to these students on the call?
Yeah, I don't know. It's great. It's great that you're here. I love that you're considering this college. It was so wonderful for me, and I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. If you do end up at List, I'd say make sure to take advantage of everything it has to offer. The List community is so powerful, and you'll be enveloped in a community kind of no matter what, and that's amazing. But also I encourage you to step outside your comfort zone a little bit, step outside the community, and get involved in other things, and push yourself to take advantage of everything that New York and Columbia and JTS have to offer, as well as enjoying the beautiful List College community.
Awesome, thank you. And we're going to still hear from our last three alumni on the panel. So you guys have been great. So we'll go Sarah, then we'll go Jenna, then we'll go Nick. How are you involved Jewishly today? And what's your piece of advice for these students before our time ends in a few minutes?
Sure. So I think maybe I'm a little bit different from everyone who's spoken. I'm not actively, I'm not a regular Shabbat service attendee. And I say that in part because you don't have to be at List College, and I want to make sure that that's, that I wasn't in college either. I enjoy services. I go when I feel compelled. But and it's more than just on the high holidays, but it's not every week. And so just for students, that is true for a lot of our students and alums. So I've moved to several cities since I graduated where I knew no one. And the Jewish community has consistently been an anchor for me. I have connected to people that I didn't know, but my friends, List College alum, et cetera, knew. But I also have been quite involved with Federation anywhere that I've been. And so my first friends, when I came back to Syracuse during COVID, and my friends from high school and stuff are not local, the first place that I went was Next Gen, which is Federation's national kind of 20s and 30s crew. And that's really where my group of friends here, which is a very strong community, that's where we started from. And so I guess the Jewish community and Jewish identity has really been an anchor for me in all of the places that I've gone, but that can look different ways for different people. And of course, my List College friends are still some of my closest friends. One of them visited me over the weekend, which is always really nice. And then in terms of my advice for students, I have a lot of advice for applicants, but I'll try not to shift back into List College admissions director role. But I would say visit campus. I think I probably made the decision, like, yeah, this was the place for me, sitting on the floor in Hannah's first year dorm room. It makes on prospective students weekend, it makes a difference. I felt and still feel so at home when I walk through the Barnard gates. I feel comfortable. It just feels like home. And it felt different the first time I was on campus than it did at any of the other schools that I went to. So if you're able, visit. And then, for the accepted students who are looking to come to campus, you can make the time for the things that you care about. And so List College students have a really kind of unique way of, they have kind of this unique way of picking the things that they're really passionate about it and then throwing 110% into those things. And so you can do that at school. It's a really cool thing to see all the different things that your classmates do because they are really wide ranging, as hopefully you figured out from the panel. But you can do whatever you want at List, and it's a matter of picking it and really going for it.
Thank you. Jenna, Nick.
Oh, I'm not actually sure. Did you mean me for
Sorry,
Jen?
I'm gonna say orally.
No.
I know Jenna had to step off. I apologize. Jenna had to leave early. Well, not leave early, she left. So yes, orally, please. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like Sarah. I'm currently not super active in a community. I have 80-hour rotation work weeks, and I am regularly in the hospital on Saturdays. So I'm not attending synagogue right now. For me, I think one of the things I loved about List College is that it kind of teaches you to be creative about how you want to be engaging with Judaism. And for me, I think at this point, Judaism for me, I use as kind of a psychological relief. I feel like when I have my emergency room shifts and my trauma shifts, like that's when I feel the most like I need to make it to my family's Shabbat dinner. And I think that for me, like a lot of the reasons why I love Judaism are the same reasons I wanted to be a doctor, which is that I really love my grandmothers, and both of them really loved Judaism and taught me so much. And so I'm very passionate about being in the profession that is devoted to helping more little kids spend time with their grandparents. And so I use Judaism kind of as a psychological support during hard times or when I deal with a lot. And so you don't have to use Judaism you're not going to have to be involved formally in Judaism. Of course, there's so many avenues if you want to. But for me at this moment, I am very thankful for my JTS education because it taught me about creative ways to think about Judaism and how it can help you in like hard times too. And then my advice for people who are applying or people who have been accepted, and this is no matter where you go, and I'm still learning this too, is that you're kind of growing and changing and you're becoming more of an adult learner, and your professors are going to see you kind of in a different light than maybe they did in high school. I know that for me, I had this impression that I had to be very perfect or had all of my courses perfect or very like, there were problems, but I solved them all by the time I spoke to a dean or by the time I spoke to a professor about something. And that's not true at all. No one assumes that like if you have a problem, it's because you couldn't figure it out. They want to help you. That's why deans went and became deans. And that's something I still have to learn in medical school. I'll go to my dean and be like, it's okay. I figured it out. Here's my schedule and it'll be horrible. And she'll be like, why didn't you ask me before? Like I'm still having to like keep learning that lesson again and again. And so don't be like me, and realize that like the deans are there to help you and you should come to them and like really try and work things out with them. Don't solve your problems on your own and just report that they're solved. Like go and help them figure out your schedule. Ask them about the alumni base, ask them about opportunities, and feel free to tell them, I'm not really sure what to take. What do you recommend? Those are questions that are going to be really helpful to you. And so don't feel the need to not ask, or don't feel the need to fix the problem first.
Thank you, Early. Thank you. And Nick,
Sure, I'll go pretty quick because I know folks probably want to get off. Um, I am a member of a conservative show in Chicago, is the show I grew up at. I'm on the young adult division board. I think that JTS very much solidified like my Jewish identity, and I felt most comfortable in the conservative movement. I do not go to shul very often. But it's just a nice kind of way to engage. It ends up that my wife and I host our Jewish friends and non-Jewish friends for almost all of the holidays. So we have become the conveners of our group. And JTS gave me the foundation to really be a great Jewish ambassador to non-Jewish friends and non-Jewish community members, which, and like, Dan said, there is that cred that you get from being at JTS. My advice to prospective students would just be to embrace your desire to go to LIST and just like truly lean into it and love it. And it's totally okay if you seem super excited to be a part of the community, and like let the admissions team know that you're like so into that. And for those who have been accepted, my best advice would just be to be patient with yourself. You are about to grow and change, and you will move, back to your roots and try new things. And you're going to change even in the years after you graduate. And it's okay to experiment, and it's okay to embrace who you are in any way. And LIST College is such a wonderful, safe space to try that. So it's just a great place. So thank you.
thank you. I want to thank all of our amazing panelists. For everyone who's on this Zoom, I did put my contact information in. If you have any follow-up questions or want to speak with our alumni. To the parents on this call, I feel you. I have a senior, and I know exactly what you're going through. And I hope that these amazing and articulate and compassionate and engaged individuals gave you just a small taste of where you may see your student going. And Madison,
Yes,
anything?
thank you all so much for being here tonight, alumni and all of our attendees. If any of the attendees are interested in asking further questions to our alum, feel free to reach out to LIST College Admissions and we will pass those questions along. But I wish everyone a great evening, Shabbat Shalom, and we look forward to being in touch with all of you soon. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, alumni. Thank you. I think we should do snaps, but I was never in the Greek system.
All right, good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.